What was the scariest thing you have seen or heard? Hi guys, I have heard some of your feedback and I wanted to thank you all for it. I'm gonna try and lower the tone so it's a bit more scary. Thanks for helping us to improve and make a better viewing experience for you all. Story 1. Using a throwaway because I'm still shaken by this. Moved into a new apartment and things seem completely normal for the first few weeks. About 8 weeks in, I am startled awake by a knocking sound. Someone is at my door. It's around 1 a.m. The knocking is quiet at first, then gets louder and more aggressive until they are positively beating on the door. I'm still groggy, but my first thought is that there is a fire. So I run out of bed into the door. Just then, I stopped. I'm filled with a sense of dread, and I just instinctively know that something is not right here, and I should not open the door. The knocking suddenly stops. I go to the peephole, but there is no one there. There is a large window by the door, and I'm confused how someone could walk away without casting a shadow. I lay awake in bed and didn't get any sleep. But it didn't come back, and I didn't think about it. A few days later, it happened again. This time, no buildup, just an aggressive, terrifying beating at the door. I'm scared they will actually kick the door in, whoever they are. I run to the living room with my phone in hand, ready to call the police. But again, it stops and they are gone. Again, no shadow at the window either. I somehow managed to nod back off with my bedroom door bolted shut and my cell phone in hand. About 40 minutes later, they're back again. This time, I run to the door, turn on the light, and scream, "Who's there?" There's a pause, and I ask again. And that's when they start making this frantic, animalistic scratching in the wood of shadows like animals. They also jiggle the handle, and I can hear them trying the punch code to unlock the door with the keyless entry. My blood ran cold. I called the police and the dispatcher was as freaked out as I was. They stayed on the phone with me and had me look out the peephole to get a description. They were covering the peephole so that they couldn't see. I even tried the window, but I could only see a black shape like someone in a heavy black coat, and it looked like they were crouching down very low. Made sense with where the scratching sound was coming from. I kept screaming that the police were coming because I was so scared that they would get inside before the cops arrived. I have no idea how my neighbors didn't hear any of this. Finally, the police arrived, but whoever it was gone. They had to have been on foot because the police barricaded the parking lot and searched the cars, or they lived in the complex. They sat in the lot for a while and promised to come check again on patrol. I was very shaken, but managed to go back to sleep. They came back again 2 hours later. More banging, more scratching. More of my terrified screaming to go away while I called the police again. And again they blocked the peephole and left without a trace. The next 6 months in that apartment building were hell. I had to break the lease to get out, but it was worth it. I didn't sleep a wink for 6 months and I would wake up in terror from having horrible nightmares that someone was knocking at my door again. They never did come back, but I could not shake the feeling that I was being watched by someone malevolent. They knew when I would be asleep. They knew when the police were and were not there. They seemed to be tracking me. And it's even more unsettling to me that the harassment stopped right after I installed a camera at the door. It was motion activated, so they would have to get close and activate it to know it was there. Did they watch me install it from far away? To this day, I have no answers. I had no real connections in that city aside from 2 people who I know for a fact could not have been involved. The area is extremely bigoted, and I did wonder if someone could have watched me walk home from the gay bar next door and picked me as a target, but I have no evidence of that. Not knowing is the scariest part. After the animalistic scratching, of course. Thankfully, now I live on the other side of the continent. I've been sleeping great these past few months. See, I'm stuck between a person or some type of spirit. I'm leaning more towards spirit because of the screeching, animalistic noise that OP said they made, as well as the fact they were able to disappear so fast and didn't cast a shadow. But then, the fact that it stopped as soon as OP installed a camera makes me think that maybe it was just a person who was watching OP and only tried to attack when they saw that they had no protection. What are your thoughts? Story 2. Once I was back home over some break in college. My family was driving me crazy. You all know how it is once you move out and then come back. So I decided I was gonna go for a run at the trail around this huge city park right by my house. It's just a 5K, very close to my house, and I used to have to run it all the time for soccer in high school. So I felt really comfortable going there, even though it was late, just after 10 p.m. I just wanted to get out of the house. It's late and it's cold, so the trail around in the park are pretty dead. I see a couple who look like Olympic runner types, and that made sense that they'd be out exercising. I'm almost finished. The track is a circle, and I'm almost back at the part near where I parked my car. And I see the first other person I've seen since the really fit couple. She's coming from the other direction. She's jogging, but she's doing it backwards. So I can see her, but her back is facing me. As we get closer, I start to see that it's super awkward. Her gait is almost cerebral palsy-esque. And as you might imagine, running backward on a curved track is kind of a bad idea. So her head is turned kind of far to the side so she can jog backward and stay on the trail and not hit the fence. It got weirder though. She's not in running clothes at all. She's in jeans, ballet flats, and a short sleeve polo shirt. Her hair is down and basically all in her face. It's giving the heebie-jeebies, and I don't really know why. Like, sure, that's not normal running attire, but it's just clothes. We're getting closer and closer to where we're going to be shoulder to shoulder for a second, going separate ways. And if I were a dog, the hackles at the back of my neck would have been going huge. My mental state is, this is weird, but not a big deal. Has never been so divorced from my physical state. Shaky, panic attack breaths, hair on the back of my neck up, adrenaline making my veins feel weird, etc. In my life. Before this, I didn't really understand the whole my body was mutinying against my brain thing that people say. Everything except my brain was telling me to turn around rather than crossways next to this girl. But that would have meant running almost the entire track again to get to my car. And screw that, lol. Anyways, it's too late. I'm like 10 steps away from being shoulder to shoulder with this girl. And keep in mind, she still has her back to me. I was planning on doing that awkward grin you do when you pass someone on the smallish part of the track, but it comes and we're right next to each other, and I can't look at her. And I don't. It's been like 20 steps and it hits me that if she's still running backward, that now she's staring at the back of my head. And I don't freaking like it at all. I get these instant intrusive thoughts of her finishing winding up backward and just flinging forward at the back of my head. And immediately I stop running, like runner running, and start freaking sprinting to my car. I get in and lock it. But for some reason, I just can't bring myself to start it. I just keep scanning around for her, feeling frozen. Finally, whatever adrenaline issue I was having wore off, and I made the short drive to my house. Barely remember it. I couldn't stop thinking about the freaky girl. Absolutely nothing happening, and it's still the most freaked out and spooked I've ever been in my life. That's what I get for trying to exercise my frustration away instead of drinking like a normal person. I totally get Opie's frustration with his parents. Sometimes I need to go out for a coffee or drink or something to get away from them when I visit. That being said, I would never go for a run late at night. I hate running, but I hate running at night even more. I don't know if the person was on drugs or some type of entity, but I do know I would somehow get my unathletic butt to start sprinting as soon as I saw her too. Story 3. I had insomnia for a long time. Still do, to a degree. I used to go days upon days without finding a way to sleep. After a few, I would hallucinate. Vivid and clear illusions which I could only recognize because I knew they weren't real. My senses would betray me, but my common sense would not. Most of what I saw was standard stuff. Bugs in my food, shadow people in the dark corners of rooms, movement in the corners of my eyes. But one time, I didn't sleep for around 10 days. I might have caught a micro nap or something. But I didn't get any real sleep for well over a week, and I was falling apart. I decided to try to burn some excess energy with a run. There was a path near my house. I started running around maybe noon. I think it started off as normal, as these desperate runs did. I was seeing things. Shapes of people in the trees, silent and steady as they ever were. That tireless energy carrying me with an unnatural ease along game trails and self-beaten footpaths. I think I was starting to get tired when a sudden movement made me jump. I turned expecting nothing. The movement out of the corner of my eye. Nothing more. But there was one of my shadow people, walking so purposely towards me. I knew it wasn't a real person. Real people aren't a shadowy stain across my vision. But then again, my shadow person hallucinations didn't move. This one did. I ran as fast as I could until I got home. Saw countless others along the path. They seemed to notice me passing and then followed, walking so purposely, but without menace. When I finally reached the clearing to my house, they followed me from the woods. They stopped. So many I suspected I was hallucinating from the shadows of the forest, but the angles weren't right. I rushed inside, planning to take a shower and to goddamn it sleep no matter what. You may think the shadows were the worst part. They weren't. I showered. I lived alone at the time, in a house in the middle of the woods near a swamp. I stepped out of the bathroom naked to see the form of a little girl. Only not right. She was distorted, her proportions like a rag doll. She stepped towards me, and as light fell right, I saw her face. Shriveled like a corpse, with two sunken eye sockets with rings upon rings around jet black pits for eyes. She said something I don't remember, and I, ducking, ran. I had dirty dim clothes in the car, and they were all I had for a while. I slept in a coffee shop on campus. I couldn't be alone for days after that. This sounds absolutely terrifying, especially that they were able to somehow get inside OP's house. I'm surprised they didn't seem to follow OP to the coffee shop. Makes me wonder if they were just a sleepless hallucination, or something more sinister. Story 4. I don't know that this is my scariest, but it's the first thing that came to mind. When I moved into my new house, I was left home alone while my parents took my little brothers to their new school, only 2 blocks away. I was on the phone with my best friend when all of a sudden, I hear my front door slam. I assume my parents got home, but looked outside and the car wasn't there. They locked the door when they left, so I was confused. I start to leave my room when I hear voices and things being slammed around. The voices have a weird quality, like they were coming from a radio. Obviously, my first thought was, oh crap, someone broke in, and I ducked back inside the room. I start to hear beeping and weird static noises. I was panicking because I couldn't close my door or hide in the closet, because any noise I made would alert any intruders that I was there. So I kind of hunched down behind the door, whispering to my friend over the phone that I was going to hang up and call my dad. As I'm calling him, he can hear some of the noises over the phone and starts running home. All of a sudden, I hear loud bangs and something shattering, and one of the voices yells, "She's up there, go get her," and running up the stairs. I slammed the door and braced against it, because what's the point of staying quiet if they somehow knew I was there? All of a sudden, the front door opens. Again, and all of the noises just stop, except for the weird static noise. I can hear my dad calling out for me, and as soon as I call back, he tells me to stay up there so he can check the house. He looks through the whole house. Absolutely nobody is there. Only 2 odd things were out of place. The door to our storage room in the basement was open, and 2 of my dad's walkie-talkies were laying on the ground in his room, which is right by mine, which is where the static and beeping, and I assume the voices were coming from. To this day, we never figured out what exactly happened, which bothers us a lot, honestly. But now, every time I'm home alone, I keep a baseball bat in my room just in case. Story 5. One night when I was in elementary school, I randomly woke up in the middle of the night for no reason. I didn't need to use the bathroom. I wasn't cold, wasn't hot, and didn't feel sick. I only had a weird feeling in my stomach. I tried to go back to sleep, but a minute or so after I woke up, I heard footsteps out in the hall. My bedroom was accessed through a door in the middle of the hall. Now, for a bit of background, I lived with my nanny, Grandma. Everyone called her Nanny, though, and she would always get up at some point in the night to go to the bathroom and check on me like any other grandma in the world would do. So I thought, oh, it's just Nanny getting up to use the bathroom. Well, I started to get confused because it had been like 10 seconds since I initially heard the footsteps, and I hadn't seen my nanny in the hall through the doorway yet. Then, the ducking hall light turned on. The light switch was past my door. I was legit scared shirtless. Once the footsteps got to the end of the hall, they stopped. I never heard anyone use the bathroom or anything. I sat there in silence for a minute or two listening to the silence in fear and panic. Then, the footsteps started again, and the light turned back off, and the footsteps continued back into the living room and stopped. I never saw a shadow passing through the doorway. I still keep thinking to myself that I must have blinked or been too tired and not seen her, or even dreamed the whole thing. I still don't know what to think of that situation now. I have a crippling fear of being in the dark because I feel like some demon is about to stab me in the back and kill me. Story 6. I live in a haunted apartment in a scary neighborhood for a while. A lot of the neighbors were taking meth or heroin or other hard drugs. Pretty sure my upstairs neighbor was dealing crack. The haunted bit was frequently seeing moving shadows that weren't being cast by anything. My cat definitely saw them because I have never seen him look so terrified in my life. He would put his ears back and stare at them in horror and occasionally hiss. When the shadows were near my room, my fire alarm would keep going off relentlessly, and unplugged speakers kept playing static noise. 3 other people also saw the shadows. I was also simultaneously being stalked by a schizophrenic guy. So there is a bit of irony there. He would knock on my windows at night in the middle of the night and would constantly be waiting outside my door for me. One night, my roommate's girlfriend decided it was a good idea to let him inside while he was drunk and holding a sword. It was very scary. So yeah, just living in that neighborhood in general was a bad time. There were these 2 ladies who everyone referred to as the meth ladies, who would always try to stare in the windows at people and tell messed up stories and try to get people to give them money or let them borrow a car. So there were a lot of scary things going on. I felt like I was living in a horror movie that couldn't decide on one premise. The police sirens were basically constantly going off at all times, to the point where I wouldn't even notice them after a while. I'm sorry, but why the heck would that girl think it's a good idea to let someone who is drunk and holding a sword inside the apartment? Makes me think that maybe she was on something herself. Aside from that, it sucks that OP wasn't able to get rest from the dangers outside their apartment, while also being haunted in their own apartment. Sounds like a horror movie both in and outside their house. Story 7. I don't know what happened, but I was having a dream, or rather a nightmare, not a joke, about Asian faces and twisted smiles in a black background, just slowly melting into thick red blood. When I awoke, I was in sleep paralysis, in a caterpillar cat, a cat with caterpillar body. Only the legs were still paws. With another twisted smile, just laughed at me in a deep male voice. I fall back asleep because I'm too tired to be afraid. Then I'm sent into another terrifically terrifying nightmare, where I'm a spectator of myself, or rather, my own decapitated head on a silver platter, being cut into like a cake and eaten by people with pig heads and no eyes. They all turn and look in my direction. Not the head's direction, but mine, the spectator's direction, and remove their masks. 7 old men with rotting flesh and coal-black teeth. They stand up from their chairs and they have pencil-thin horse legs and hooves and try to rush me. I get anxiety both from thinking their legs are gonna frickin' snap and thinking they're coming at me. They don't reach me and I wake up again. No caterpillar cats, no sleep paralysis. I just look around and it's like 6 a.m. The sky is blue but still kind of dark. My dog came to see what was wrong and made me feel better. I thought I was gonna have a heart attack though, from how loud my heartbeat was in my ears. Now, I'm used to my brain freaking me up with horrific nightmares, so my nightmares are no longer nightmares. Story 8. My sister and I are convinced that there was something in our old house. When I was in middle school, I went through about a time where I couldn't sleep with the lights off and I had to be able to see my bedroom door at all times. I kept waking up in the middle of the night and seeing things moving in my peripheral vision. One night, it was really bad. I was so freaked out I was in a cold sweat. When I looked into the dark hallway outside my bedroom door, it looked like something was swirling around in the darkness. I spent the hours reading, but still being aware of things around me. Around 5 a.m., I got really frustrated and tired. I put my book down and flopped down in bed. By flopping down, my blanket fluffed up and blocked my view of the door. I smacked the blanket down and across the room, I saw this figure. It was only for a second, but it burned into my mind. It was tall, dark brown, and skinny, and hunched over. I blinked, and it was gone. My sister saw it more than I did, but she recently told me that one night she left her room to get some water. She had to go through my room to get to the hallway, and when she was in my room, she looked over and saw the figure standing at the end of my bed, staring at me while I slept. She then decided she didn't need water that badly and went back into her room. Story 9. I once had to live in an Airbnb for like 6 weeks because I was moving to a new city for a job, but my lease was up before everything became official. At the time, I was a 23-year-old girl, probably 115 pounds. I was staying exclusively at places with female hosts, but I showed up to this one and it was a guy. He says his sister is the host, but she's out of town for the night. I was rattled, But it was 7 p.m., my town didn't have many Airbnbs and couldn't afford to eat the cost of a hotel room. It was an old Victorian home, and everything was creaky and creepy. In the middle of the night, like 2 a.m., there was this terrible noise of cats screaming right outside my bedroom door. I heard someone walk up. A light came on, and they shooed the cats away. Then the light turned off, and no receding steps. I sat, waiting to hear them walk away, and then the doorknob jiggled. I did my best to stay awake all night, clutching a lamp as a weapon. I never heard them walk away. At 4:30 in the morning, I literally sprinted out of the house and never looked back. To this day, I'll never stay in an Airbnb or use an Uber by myself. Story 10. So this happened a long time ago. Like seriously, the only way I remember this is because of the near-death experience. So when I was little, I was home alone. My parents had a pet dog. I was instructed to go to sleep at 8, I think. So I fell asleep for a few hours. My parents had gone to a concert, so they were gone past 1 p.m. So I am suddenly woken up around 11 by my dog barking. I go downstairs and he is sitting by the door. I tell him to come with me, and he keeps sitting and barking by the door. I looked out the windows, but nothing was there. Then my dog stopped and went upstairs with me. I locked my door with my dog in my room and went back to sleep. I woke up around midnight to police sirens and police breaking my bedroom door down. My parents had got home early due to wanting to get home before traffic and had discovered that a friend of my dad had broken into my house through the roof and was planning to kidnap me and hold me for ransom. If my parents hadn't gotten home early, I probably would have been kidnapped. My dog could have died and I could have been killed. So thank you for your post-concert traffic. This sounds absolutely terrifying, especially knowing that it was your father's friend who wanted to hurt you. I couldn't imagine what my dad would do to someone who tried to do that to me. Story 11. Just a couple days ago, I had my first ever, what may have been, paranormal experience. We set up a ton of Christmas decorations around the house, among which were a couple snow globe things that had a wind-up thing on the bottom that, when wounded, played a Christmas tune. These globes are set up at the stairs landing that we have on the windowsill with a bunch of other things like Christmas stuffed animals. I'm in the house alone basically, just me, my dad who was in bed, the cat, and the dog. All of a sudden, from my room, I hear one of these wind-up snow globe things start playing Christmas music. I rush over, and it's stopped by now. Only played for about 5 seconds or so. Those were the only ones we had. The cat never goes up there, and even if it did, I have no clue how he could have triggered the wind-up song effect to play for 5 seconds, when the thing you have to wind is at the very bottom of the snow globe. The only logical explanation I can give is maybe a spring or something contracted or expanded in the shifting winter temperature, but I don't see how that could make it play for 5 whole seconds. Story 12. When I was 6 or 7 years old, I used to spend a lot of time home alone in our house. It was a big one, full of creepy places. I remember that there was this door in the yard that connected to a studio that my family used to record some music. It was this big-ass door, like a really heavy thing. One afternoon, my dog, a black Labrador called Fuser, started barking at the door, which was open at the time because I wasn't able to close it on my own because of its weight. He was very aggressive, as if something dangerous was behind the door. He was always a friendly dog that wouldn't hurt anyone, but something had settled him off. The door closed by itself after a few seconds, making a lot of noise. It was an afternoon without wind, so it didn't make any sense. The door was too heavy anyway. It was scary. I locked myself in my room after that. There were some weird noises outside, but I didn't have the guts to go and check what was happening. Watching the entire back of an underground mine fail in front of you with men under it. Buddy was running a scoop tram in a mine in BC when the shotcrete and rock bolts all sort of fell off the back of the drift, bringing with it most of the rock above. Dude lived because the cab was reinforced, but it could have been so much worse. That's the moment your blood turns cold because there's not a damn thing on earth you can or could have done differently. I also got to witness a buddy almost get killed by a rock burst while underground diamond drilling. The 2.5-inch core drill punched into a steam pocket and shot the drill pipe and the rig back about 10 feet in an instant. The drill operator is usually behind a steel plate that acts as a shield. There was a sliver of rock 4 inches long stuck halfway through it. My point being, underground mining is dangerous as heck. Story 14. My best friend called me at 3 a.m. He said, "Goodbye. Honestly, you were my only reason. But sometimes it just hurts too much." I immediately called the cops and drove to his house. We found him in his closet. Unfortunately, he had passed away. I was only 16, but we knew each other for years. It was just me and him against the world. We would get bullied a lot, but we had each other. I miss him every day, even 3 years later. Story 15. While camping with my son and husband near the Flaming Gorge in the middle of the night, I woke up to hear my son in his tent about 20 yards away saying, "You guys, someone is outside of my tent." The next morning, there were bloody bones and animal parts near a campsite and his tent. Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.